Do you know what I did, which was rogue? I had no camera insert in my bag. I just put all the gear in.
I remember when I first met you, it was like a
bag.
military canvas bag, and it was just like, I think you'd wrap like pants around the lens.
Not good. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my studio here in Iceland. I have one of my best friends here, all the way from the UK. It's not very far actually away. Steve Booker. We have been in the camera world basically since our journey began together.
Definitely, pretty much.
Steve is a YouTuber and a photographer and a big inspiration to me in my journey. And I would say that together we are absolute gear nerds. And I thought there wouldn't be a better video to do together than to go through our history of having cameras and all the gear that we've used up to this point. Steve comes from a video background, and I think through that, with my photography background, we have had the ability to kind of go through every bit of gear you could need for a creative profession, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, pretty much. I guess we've been trying to like dial in the perfect setup for photography, video, creator type stuff, really.
That's it.
And it's changed so much over the years. So it'd be cool to go back to see where we started and how it's developed into now, and see what is available and how our setups have changed from back in the day to current day.
Absolutely. The trouble is, when we get talking about this, it goes for 3 hours. So
we're trying to keep this short and sweet. Yeah.
I would say that for me, Canon cameras are the beginning.
Well, we both started, right?
Yeah.
I think we were talking the other day and we were saying that like it was pretty much like Nikon and Canon were the two brands that you basically picked, and we both picked Canon.
Before knowing each other as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then obviously we've changed brands over the years and stuff, but for me, it was Canon. That was my first camera. I remember saving up for it, it's I've gone completely blank.
How crazy is it? How crazy is it to save up for a camera? It takes a long time.
Oh my God, yeah. Do you remember your first camera? Do you remember what it was?
So I managed to borrow a family camera. It was a 40D.
Okay.
Yeah, with a kit lens. And my biggest dream, I'm not kidding, my biggest dream was to have a lens hood. That's all I wanted. I thought they looked so sick. And also having a camera, a DSLR where there's a screen on the top.
Yeah.
Because the cheaper cameras had the dial where the screen 100%. On the 5D.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. But it's funny because back in the day as well, it was like, for me, the bigger the camera, the more professional you looked. So it was like, talking about the lens hood, it was like probably because it made it look more legit.
Absolutely.
Whereas now it's like, I actually want to be streamlined. Like I don't really want to be lugging around loads of camera gear because, if you're hiking, like doing a lot of stuff, like your stuff, like hard to get to, I suppose you have the Jeep to do that, but when you're hiking in the mountains stuff, you want to be able to have a low profile gear. But
and that kind of is a trend that just creative work is going towards.
Definitely.
I mean, we're back to iPhones now, so we may as well sell everything.
We were talking about how good the iPhone is. It's ridiculous. And I was saying, like, imagine if I was to have the iPhone as good as it is now, back when I first started YouTube, it would have just changed everything. Because we were just trying to find the most efficient way to film and have that camera on you at the whole time.
What year was that? When
probably 2013. Like I was involved in a channel before that, but 2013 is when I really started to kind of get involved in making my own videos and, kind of looking at the YouTube landscape and what it was. And it just seemed really fun, and meeting other people who were kind of in that scene as well.
And you started, what was your first camera that you started to make videos with?
7D, I think.
7D?
I think it was a 7D, yeah.
Fast shutter on that.
Yeah, not full frame either.
No.
And it
How
was a 7D.
That for vlogging? Tokina lens, maybe?
Yeah, 50mm 1.4. Yeah, I promise you. Because it's all I had at the time.
Yeah.
And then also I was saying to you, we ordered these, I can't remember the name of the actual model, but it was these Canon little tiny like digital cams. And that was what we used to vlog on. And they were like £100 off eBay. You couldn't get them brand new because they were old. They weren't making them anymore. We used to go through those and just use those, and they would last like 4 to maybe 6 months at a time, and you just buy a few at a time and then basically be using those as the vlog cameras, really.
Disposable vlog camera.
Pretty much, yeah, because also like it wasn't really a thing. You either had more of like this is also when SLR video was still quite new as well. It wasn't anywhere, there was no mirrorless cameras at the time. And that's, going on to that's where Sony came in and basically just changed everything. And they were way ahead of anyone else. And then and everyone was like, whoa, Sony wasn't someone that you really thought about when you think about professional photography or cinematic kind of video. And then they kind of came out of nowhere. It was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And that's one thing, again, we were talking about this the other day, is like, I've always been Canon through and through. I've always been really loyal to Canon, but then it was like I couldn't ignore how far ahead Sony were.
Absolutely. And we're talking at that time, it was like 5D Mark III, I believe.
2 maybe.
5D Mark II or 3 when the A7 line came out. And I remember I started with the 40D, then I saved up, and eventually I got a 5D Mark II. And I had that for years and years.
Because when I met you, we both had the same camera. That's what we had. Yeah, we had the 5D Mark II, yeah.
And I remember at the time I was getting really into wildlife photography, and I was using more obscure lenses. Like I loved the 135 f2.
Well, I bought that lens because of you, basically. Yeah, because I was like, wow, that's such an interesting focal length. Yeah,
absolutely.
Really unique.
We've convinced each other to buy gear so many times.
Even recently.
Yeah, 100%. Yesterday, man.
Yeah.
But what sold me on going to a mirrorless camera was the ability to have the focus in the eyepiece, the electronic viewfinder.
Crazy.
Absolutely changed the game, because I feel like back then, AF, autofocus, was not quick enough to catch those amazing wildlife moments in the price range of gear that I could afford. And I feel like, it was a big step going to the A7R2. Yeah.
Yeah, you rocked that for a while, didn't you?
I had that for 8, and I used Canon lenses because I don't think
that's a good
point. Up until very recently, I could never afford to buy like the actual native lens, so I've been doing some random combinations of gear.
Yeah, you were good at that though. You had a really good setup of like different branded lenses that you just made work.
Rocking on.
Yeah.
Rocking on, mate.
Yeah. Did you have Takina as well? No.
No.
It was rocking on. Okay.
Yeah. And Samyang.
That's it. Samyang.
And then I moved to Sigma, and I still use Sigma. This video is filmed on a Sigma lens, and I think it looks all right. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean the art range changed again. Everything. No one really entertained Sigma as like like premium basically, and then they obviously came out that. I was like, wow, okay, these are unreal, and they're pretty much not quite half the price, but a lot cheaper.
100%. And I also remember the transition to Sony being hard because Sigma lenses were not E-mount then. And I had to have that adapter. And Metabones sucked.
Yeah, it did. And the autofocus was whack.
Yeah, really average. And then the Sigma adapter came out and kind of changed the game. And I still use it now.
MC11.
MC11, right? Yeah. Such a good one.
Yeah.
And then I realized when I went to Sony that I no longer loved the tactile experience of holding my camera. And I loved the images that I could get from this and what the technology could allow. But I felt like a piece of my soul was missing the whole time, because I feel like holding a Canon camera or any beefy camera, I feel excited to go and use it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's a tool, right? It's a tool, but also you want to be inspired by that tool that you're using to go out and shoot.
Yeah.
And I think that even talking about like our first cameras and stuff, like, I don't really have like with the Sony stuff, I don't have like a romantic relationship with it and that sounds weird, but you know what I mean? Like, whereas like if I think about Canon and my journey early on, I'm like, we did some stuff. Like we went through some stuff, like those 5Ds, I bashed that around. I shot majority of like me kind of my social media journey. That was like my tool, I owe it a lot. Right? I owe it a lot, so it was a big part of like my career in that way.
You were saying that you were quite early to adopt holding a big camera to vlog.
Well, Casey really dominated that early on, because we were all using kind of these smaller handy cams, and then obviously a lot of my early videos weren't vlogs, so they were more like 2-cam kind of interview type stuff, and where it was reviewing in a coffee shop or interviewing someone that's doing something interesting in the creative world or whatever. So I had those types of videos, and then I did more like vlogs around travels and stuff like that. But yeah, so I wanted to, you know, evolve and adapt as the platform kind of did the same, and put out higher quality videos really. So it was like basically lugging around a big setup to vlog. You know, my right arm got strong.
Need it for the baby.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, and that was interesting, because now like you see someone with a gorilla pod or like a tripod with a camera and a microphone, and you don't really think much of it. No. But when you're like lugging that around and filming, people are giving you some weird looks. Which people know what YouTube is. People know what that is now, you know.
And the first drones, similar experience. Wow. That's another topic.
Yeah.
I wanted a drone for so long. At the time that I managed to save up enough, it was the Phantom 4 Pro, carrying that box around.
The white, they're like polystyrene grey box.
Loved that guy.
Yeah.
Carried him up many a mountain.
Crashed a few of those.
Yeah. And that was probably a similar time when you got into drones.
Yeah. I think I held off for a long time. I definitely wasn't one of the early guys with drones.
Weren't you in... You were in LA flying a Phantom early on. I remember seeing a video that
on Venice Beach. Yeah, with Ben. Yeah, we both flying them together. And the thing is, again, early on in the drone stuff, like there were no rules really, because there was this new thing, and so we would just fly them anywhere.
No rules until the military shows up.
Chop people's ears off, you know. It's that kind of until the military shows up. But it was that kind of situation. So it has developed so much for the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's less rogue now.
It is, but, and just normal. I mean, people in a campsite get annoyed at hearing a drone. There are standard things now, but at least everyone knows what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's most likely just taking some harmless photos, not spying.
But amazing tool. I remember even before drones, like I did a few helicopter flights, and that was how you got aerial shots, which is kind of like expensive and long and
shaky.
And very shaky, very, very shaky. Yeah. And then drones came out, and it's like, wow, like I can just go out and pretty much have a helicopter on lock, but that's my own.
And like change the composition.
Totally.
The scene's not gone.
Yeah, exactly. So that was pretty amazing.
I think for B-roll, I wonder the link between the cinematic side of YouTube growing and drones, because I think it's quite interlaced for the everyday creator.
Very interesting.
Had their hands on what, you know, Hollywood had.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Really
and I feel like the progression of videos online, it became really polished for a while. Like I would say, like we've talked about, like our heyday of really putting time into the aesthetic of things on social media, and it is still relevant, but I feel like it's just outdated now in a world where things are so fast paced,
rapid, short form, rapid kind of.
And
not
also,
I don't want this to be negative, not throwaway, but kind of a bit more like. More about pumping it out than it is about, you know, the individual bits of content.
The platform's favouring using your phone. So
definitely.
But I love the mix.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Steve's videos, you should go over to his channel. They're amazing documentation of life at the moment. That's been your focus. And a nice mix of iPhone and cinema cameras. Looks great.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Yeah.
Going
back to where I am today with my cameras, I have had all this weird gear and never had a sponsor my entire journey. And really that feeling of brands, because of my location, it's geographical issues really. Being in Iceland, there is no headquarters for any camera brand. It's just
you're kind of not claimed by like a department, right?
No. So people import cameras here and have stores, but they're not a representative of the brand. And that's made it incredibly hard to connect with these companies. DJI has been a huge supporter of my work, and I'm really grateful for our collaboration over all these years. But other than that, in terms of a handheld camera, it's never been a thing. And
which is crazy to me, because I feel like you're like a sponsor's dream really with what you shoot, your work and how you approach it. Like I'm like, how have you not got a camera sponsor, you know?
And I've felt like a bit down at times, but then also it is in a way better to not be sponsored, because you're not owing anything and you can smash your gear around. I think you're the same, smash my gear around.
Yeah, and it's also a completely unbiased viewpoint on it, you know. So like if you do, I think that's again another thing we were talking about, was like being open to what is available and what is coming out, and not just going, you know, I'm only on this brand because that's what I shoot. It's like, yes, okay, to move ecosystems is a very hard thing to do.
It costs a lot of money.
A lot of money, and obviously
that's why I never did it.
Yeah,
like
of course,
Canon
because
lenses,
you build up your lenses. We've talked about this, you know,
RF,
they're super expensive, but also like you how you build up gear over the years is like a project might come up that you need to have a lens or a certain bit of gear for that you buy that budget allows for, you know, and then you kind of build up over the years and your gear gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not just like, it's not like you just go, boom, I'm going to buy all of my dream stuff from the get-go.
Yeah.
It's making those. Like, I remember I spent probably over a year and all I had was like a 35mm fixed, you know, and it was like, yeah, it was hard, but I actually quite liked it because it made me have to think about the composition, think about what I'm shooting. And I think I became a better photographer from that. Because I think people are really quick to go like, I need all of this kit. And it is great because I love camera kit and I love nerding out and chatting about it and going, oh, this could be perfect for this. But I think, yeah, you can just get it done with a simple setup.
It was my dream when I had that 40D to get the nifty 50.
Oh,
smashed
it was all over Flickr, man.
Yeah, it was.
It was
Flickr
all over
days.
Flickr, like really shallow depth bokeh. Like I wanted that.
It was the one. And then I got the 17 to 40mm Canon wide lens. I think that was what it was. F4 IS. Game changer. Because now I didn't have to walk 50 meters further back with the 50. And that's the combo. When I got the 5D and the 17 to 40, that's where my career started with that combination. Coming to Iceland for the first time, taking landscapes for the first time. I remember dreaming of wanting an ND filter. Oh my God. Saw all these amazing silky waterfalls on the internet and I really wanted to figure that out.
How do they do that?
I know. Yeah. And in Australia, waterfalls are hard to come by. You don't have a lot of water around. So when I finally came here to Iceland, my mind was just exploding with photographic opportunities.
I don't really hit that technique anymore, really. I used to be well into it.
You know, a friend of ours, Jared Singh, he was really good at the 1 second short, long exposures of water.
Really?
And I like that look. You get a bit of motion, but it's not like dad-like.
Silk,
Dadographer.
Yeah. Dadscape, which is me now.
Yeah.
And soon to be you.
I noticed how much I'm becoming a dad when we were setting up for this and I got my phone out and the torch was on. Things are changing. And in my photography, things are changing. I was recently, and this is part of why I wanted to make this video, kind of to express how happy I am to finally have been believed in and a brand say, okay, we're going to just figure out a way to get you a camera. We can't sponsor you, but let's figure it out. And that was Canon. Like finally, I figured it out after some amazing chats. They were willing to give me, some gear to test at least. And that, I think the mentality of not being able to afford gear and this random mix of brands that I've had has still stuck today. Like I had to buy a Red for my cinema work and that basically took all the budget I had for years of gear. But I haven't been willing to give up like my precious savings because I already have the Sony gear. It works. But my heart has been in Canon for so long and I'm really not inspired to use the Sony gear. I just wanted to go back to the Canon, but it's quite an investment. And, I was reaching that point where for photography, especially when you got the 28 to 70, I was like, it's time. Like I'm going to do this.
Yeah, amazing.
And I finally had that opportunity to, now I have both sets of gear going and I don't really know what the future holds, but I would say that I'm very inspired to shoot having the Canon again.
I think it's just that comes back to that heritage of where you started from, and the memories of like kind of where you've come from, and then being like, yeah, this is, like I said, we've been on a journey, this brand and you.
True, yeah, you have memories attached to using the gear.
Definite.
Yeah, but it is just beefy.
Yeah. It feels great.
Like it's a good weapon if you need to protect yourself.
If the battery dies, you can always throw it at someone.
But I would say 5 years ago, that 28 to 70, it's like, no worries. Like just chuck it in the bag anytime. It's a bit of an issue now.
Yeah, it's a beast. It's
very heavy.
The great thing about that lens, though, is that for me, I don't have any primes. And I feel like that lens basically enables me not to have any primes. Like it's so good that I just don't feel like I need it. It's very versatile. It's a big, beefy guy.
It is.
But
it is every
it's
lens.
amazing. It's an amazing lens, yeah.
So what is your gear list now?
That I own?
Yeah. And use.
Okay. So I recently moved over to Canon. I went from the A7R and the A7S range into, I've now got an R5. I've got the 16 to 35, 24 to 70, f2.8 and the 28 to 70 f2. So they're the three lenses that I have, which for
70
me,
to 200?
So, yeah, did I say that? I said that, didn't I?
I think so.
Yeah. So they're the three main lenses that I use, and I'm still trying to figure out my video setup. Really, I film with those, so it's the R5 and those three lenses.
What mic?
Mic, as in for
like filming,
for like talking to camera stuff, or for like in the field kind of stuff.
Both.
Okay, I'm using the Sennheiser MKE 400, but I'm in the market for a new mic. I've used that for years. I think they've actually released a new one now. So I'm in the market to kind of change my audio setup. Obviously, we were going through the DJI little lav mics the other day, and they look amazing. Yeah, the AirPods of mics basically. So I think I'm going to invest in that. And then I also have a Rode. I can't remember the name of it that I use indoors, but it's like the really long, thin one.
Shotgun.
Yeah, and I have that on a boom. Like
NTG.
That's it. Yeah. Which is pretty good. But then I might fully move over, and I'm using my iPhone in some videos, holding up to my phone
really well.
But because the audio is really good, and it's the workflow is really easy, really easy. It's just airdrop the file, sync it in Premiere or whatever you use, and it's good to go. But yeah, audio, I'm always kind of back and forward on it.
And Sony really sold me on the hot shoe mics.
Very good.
They're really amazing.
Very
Finally,
good.
that cable stress is gone. The noise from the cable gone. So that was a big question. That was a big question mark for me moving back to Canon. Is what audio setup I would use.
And I haven't figured that out yet.
I have that new Sennheiser mic.
Yeah.
And
it's onboard one.
Onboard one. Yeah, onboard modem, right? And it's really good. But for my gear list, as it is now, I am rocking the Sony A7R4 with the 200 to 600 because I don't have a Canon zoom lens yet. So that's always just on there. And then if I have wildlife, then the 500 f4 from Sigma. And then my kind of more straight up daily use setup now is the RF 16 to 35 2.8, 28 to 70, and the 70 to 200 2.8, and the R5C from Canon, which we've just been talking about this because it is kind of game changing to have different user interface setups for video and photo. No longer do you have to swap the settings every time you go between.
Which is amazing. We've talked about this a lot. It's amazing because having that kind of switchability is so good, because when on the R5 when I shoot, like you end up favoring one, either photo or video, because the kind of you have to go in and change all the settings and then you operate in a different way, whereas on the C it's literally like you showed me, it's two different interfaces.
The only overlap is if you have an ND on the lens. That would be amazing if it was internal, and the fan is a bit bulky, chunko. But the camera's lighter.
Yeah, it is.
So that's super weird, but awesome.
But for me, obviously, my setup at the moment is more tailored towards photo, and I'm looking to figure out my video setup, and the R5C is absolutely in that conversation because I'm already in the lens, the RF ecosystem. And once you're in it, again, it's expensive to invest in lenses, so
absolutely
it makes sense to kind of have one that you can use for both.
And thinking about like some advice for anyone getting into this, if you can get just a setup of native lenses from the start, for me that would have avoided this random story of like super random lenses that were like budget friendly and like often manual focus and like very weird things. I could have probably in the end for the same amount of money just bought the native stuff in the beginning. But I think in photography especially, my journey proved to me that it doesn't really matter what brand, but if you do enough research, which I think we're very good at, really researching thoroughly what the lens can do or camera can do, anything for that matter. I had great outcomes from these Samyang lenses for a Canon. I've printed them like 3 meters by 3 meters, and they look fantastic, especially with 42 megapixels from A7R, and now 60 megapixels.
Yeah.
I mean, megapixels is a whole other thing, and now we have AI, so it doesn't really matter. May as well use a potato.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. There's lots of stuff coming through that kind of makes that not really an issue. But
like, wouldn't you say it's worth, if you can get like a 24 to 70? You don't even need really more than that. For me,
like I rocked that for a long time, like 24 to 70. Very, very versatile from a filming point of view and images.
That's
like
it.
You get that on the 70, you get that bit of compression that you want, you know, when you're filming kind of detail stuff.
Vlogging's hard.
Vlogging, yeah. So you want a little bit wider if you are vlogging. But
what do you think's the optimal full frame focal length for holding it out?
It depends how much of you want. In
how long
frame.
you want your arm to be.
Yeah, pretty much, because like 16 to 35 obviously is probably very good. Like I use that a lot, but some people don't like that. It feels like you're kind of quite small in the middle of the frame, you know. So yeah, I would say
16 to 35, and somewhere around like the 19 mil, 20 mil mark.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that's ideal.
16 feels just a bit too wide.
Yeah, and also like, if you were filming for vlogs with a 16 prime, for example, everything else would feel a bit wide as well.
Definitely.
So you need that zoom option.
You absolutely need that. If you're kind of make videos where you want to get that kind of B-roll cinematic type feel, then you need that punched in to 35, 100%. Although everything just looks a bit weird. Yeah.
But I would say I could have done most of my journey on a 24 to 70 for photos and stitched if I need a bit wider. But we've always been on this path of like, we need prime lenses and like the optimal quality.
Definitely.
And I would say the early, like 7 years ago, I probably would have preferred a prime to a 24 to 70.
I wouldn't have even entertained. I wouldn't have entertained non-primes.
No.
I was like, I only really shoot on prime, like 24, 35, 50.
We made it hard
85,
for ourselves.
135. Do you know what I mean? Lugging like,
I
know it's a lot of stuff.
Do you know what I did, which was rogue? I had no camera insert in my bag. I just put all the gear in. I remember when I first met you. Yeah, it was like a
military. It was like a military canvas bag, and it was just like, I think you'd wrap like pants around the lens.
It's not good.
But hey, look, you roll with But at the same time, it's like you do what you can do.
Exactly.
You know, camera bags are also expensive.
I know. I couldn't get one,
and they don't look great.
No.
That's another thing. That's another conversation.
That's the next time we meet up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a lot of things. I think it's better now.
Yeah, it is much, much better.
We were in a tough time. When we were finding our first sets of gear, it was very hard.
Well, the whole Instagram and the whole kind of like this creator kind of movement wasn't really a thing within like the camera industries. And that's why I think it's taken, you know, I love Canon, right? But I think it's taken them a while to really hear like that as a market. I think Sony are definitely way more in tune with the whole like YouTuber or a creator that goes out and shoots images, but also has a social media kind of like
that attracted us
following
to them as well.
Definitely. They just like listened more, I think. Whereas I think Canon now have definitely caught up and are offering some really great products, you know. But they were definitely behind, I would say, in that way, and they were more focusing on traditional photographers and that style of person, really. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
I really felt like a piece of me was missing going to the Sony.
Yeah, like I said, I just didn't have that same relationship with it. It was a tool that I was just like, yep, this is the most efficient thing I can use, and it's not always about that.
No,
it's like, are you gonna feel like you want to go and shoot something that you're inspired by, you know?
Like the 28 to 70 was the dream for both of us for a long time. Getting that lens is like, I'm shooting right now.
100%.
Dropping everything.
I bought mine here, and we were in the store for so long, and I was like, which one do I go for? You know?
Yeah, the 24 to 70 or that one.
Exactly. I was like, which one do I go for? And then it was like, I'm going to go for this one, even though it's more expensive. And heavier. But like, I like it more.
Like you're excited
I'm excited to put it on my camera and go out and shoot with it. And
the other one was just
saying something. Yeah, the other one's just, again, it's a tool, right?
So there is value in that. And it is important to feel inspired.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Within your means. And there are many other lenses, very affordable lenses, that can do amazing things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like, I'm a big fan of Sigma, 100%. They're also, I think they're launching or have launched RF native mount as well.
Have they?
It's coming. Yeah.
Exciting times.
Which is great because there definitely will be more affordable, and obviously the glass is great from previous use of like on the Sony range and stuff.
And obviously we're talking from the perspective of a photographer that also wants to film, but like the cinema world is a different discussion. I feel like.
Yeah, definitely.
There are though, like actually this lens.
Oh yeah.
The DZO film.
Yeah, you love these, right? I don't see. This is definitely not my remit. Like I'll leave this to you for sure. Yeah.
I mean, you can't be vlogging with this.
Maybe you can.
Maybe you can. Yeah.
But you did a lot of research into these, right?
Totally. Yeah. And I've had a lot of field experience on even shooting Netflix stuff. And it looks just absolutely awesome. It's sharp enough. And it's also got some character to it for the price of, I don't know, $1,300.
Yeah, amazing. And cine lenses can be ridiculous.
I think my Atlas anamorphic was like $10,000 or something.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. I found a way though, as you said, you build up your gear over the years. I was able to rent that back to repay it.
Yeah.
So you do find a way with the expensive gear. Even with cheap gear, I feel like it's often overlooked to include your gear in your pricing.
Yeah, definitely.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Because obviously, you've got thousands of pounds worth of, or dollars worth of gear that you've built up over the years. There's definitely, you're able to use that for shoots that some people might not have, especially in the world that you're in terms of like the more cinematic type kind of documentarian stuff, for sure. Yeah,
it's important. It's important to think about. But I think, our goal was to talk about our history of cameras. We did that. The only other thing I can think of is before I got my Canon, I bought a used X100 Fuji.
Oh, yeah.
And started doing street photography. And that was in the way the Canon has really inspired me and still does, like to get outside and shoot. That camera really inspired me.
Definitely.
Because that can be almost in your pocket. And I think you've had something similar, that the Fuji something
X100F maybe, or before
XT something.
XT no.
Like had interchangeable lenses. Anyway, you had it for a bit.
Did I? Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Recently.
The X Pro 3. X Pro 3.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, X Pro 3. Like I would use that now. It's a great little camera. Really, really good little camera. And again, it's small, interchangeable lenses, but it was on me all the time. Like I wanted to carry it on me all the time.
And that matters.
Definitely.
But for some reason, I've never been able to link my professional work to a camera like that. I don't know why that is.
Interesting, that is, yeah. Because I guess we are coming from this as a point of view of like, this has now become a career for us. So when we're talking about like investing in kit and stuff, that is directly related to working in the field and earning money from that industry. And I think like also talking about like how your work is now, like that's developed over the years of, like you were just saying, street photography. You've probably tried all types of photography. I remember when I first started, like I was shooting the most random stuff, but just because I wanted to learn. And I think that's important as well. It's like often on social media when you see people, it's all this polished kind of finished product, and it's like, oh wow, how do you do that? Well, it's like, I haven't always been like that. I've invested time, I've learned, I've been bad at it for a while.
Tried as many different avenues. That's the one
techniques
thing.
And understanding photography techniques as well, which I think really is, like I've done weddings, I've done corporate headshots, which is not for me. I've done like, I remember even making my own little light box and like putting like peppers in there and like shooting product photography and like still life, but just trying, but then all of that, at the time you think you're just kind of messing around or whatever, but you learn from that and you can kind of bring that into, the genre that you end up kind of falling in love with and going into. I feel like
you find out your genre by doing that. That's the one thing that I did as well. I tried every single form of photography I could. My pepper moment was dropping food dye into milk and doing macro
I remember you telling me about this. Yeah.
Sick. That was so good.
Yeah, definitely.
And then bouncing flashcards with different colored paper.
Yeah.
You learn a lot doing that.
Definitely. I definitely would say, like, if people want to get into it, just shoot as much as you can and different types of photography for sure.
And
Same with
throw
video.
yourself in the deep end of it. If you get the chance to join as an assistant on a wedding shoot,
absolutely.
you learn so much.
Absolutely,
It's a grind.
It is.
But it's a positive outcome, I think. It's just hard work.
Definitely.
And I think in those moments where you have to get it right, that's really when you refine the skill.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's fun going back through all the stuff.
I know. It's really nice, man. But I think that we've talked a lot.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know.
And
probably too long.
Yeah, 2 hours.
We could carry on,
idea.
We'll
save the next one for the next time you come to Iceland.
Definitely, which will probably be soon.
Yeah, probably tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked out Steve's channel, he's OG. Head over to his YouTube and Instagram at Steve Booker. And stay tuned for more stuff from this little studio here in Iceland and from the field. I'm going to be in Svalbard very soon, so there'll be some polar bear Arctic action.
Exciting.
Yeah. All right.